Hello, my guest this week has an impressive track record, with executive roles in big financial institutions, including Credit Suisse First Boston, HSBC Hong Kong, and Bank of America. But he's also a tech entrepreneur, starting his own AI and machine learning business, and in the past few years, pioneering the use of blockchain in finance. So there's lots to talk about, including his current position as General Manager of the soon-to-be-opened Fabriik Exchange. So I'd like to welcome Daniel Skowronski. Hi, Daniel.
Hey, Charles. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for doing this.
You're listening to CoinGeek Conversations with Charles Miller.
Okay, let's jump right in with Fabriik Exchange, which is the business you're most involved with right at the moment. It's not a vintage clothing market, I know that much. Tell me about Fabriik Exchange.
So Fabriik Exchange is a digital marketplace. Kind of coined the phrase everything digital. As you know, blockchain and more specifically cryptocurrencies have really exploded on the scene in 2017. There was a number of exchanges that came and grew out of that, some very good exchanges, some with regulation, some without regulation. And, the market has really evolved in the last few years. We went through a really big cycle, and I think this is kind of where Fabriik is being born out of, is this second wave or this second cycle. And I think that's really built first and foremost around regulation, because we're starting to see bigger players, institutions, real money starting to flow in this industry, whereas before it was truly a wild, wild west. So Fabriik Exchange is a regulated digital marketplace where we are not tied to one particular asset. Of course, we look at which assets we feel have the best projects or the best opportunity to grow and to basically facilitate the blockchain space. But I think the one differentiator also that will be is that we're focusing not just on fiat pairs or Bitcoin pairs or Ethereum pairs, but also on BSV pairs. We'll have probably one of the largest BSV pairs that's, I think, currently in the marketplace as well.
Right, because we'll talk a little bit about the rest of the Fabriik portfolio in a minute, perhaps. But Fabriik in general is very BSV oriented. But in relation to the exchange, then, it's not running on BSV. It's simply offering BSV options in terms of trading pairs. Is that right?
That's correct. Traditionally exchanges, other than the decentralized exchanges that are out there, they're centralized. They're called centralized. So it's not, all the trades are not done on the blockchain. You may deposit through the blockchain or withdraw through the blockchain, but once they hit the exchanges, they're in a centralized model. And that's pretty much the standard in today. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, I still believe that decentralized exchanges, although the technology is much, much better today, it's still not smooth enough or good enough for the customer. And I think that has a lot to do with the wallets that you have to connect to it. And then also from a security standpoint, it's much easier to, I think, manage from a security standpoint the centralized exchanges today. As you heard before, there were so many exchanges that were hacked. Most of the exchanges that are getting hacked today has something to do with an internal one, not externally. And the other part of it also is the regulation side. I think it'll be very, very hard for any governing body to really get behind a decentralized type of exchange. There's so much reporting requirements, so many types of fail-safe procedures that are needed to be involved. So I think from an exchange point of view, it's going to be a while before we really see any serious uptake on an exchange that's actually purely decentralized. I think we're going to get more of a hybrid type model. You still got to do your KYC and AML at the end of the day.
Who are your sort of target customers? Are we talking big business or the small consumer user or what?
So I think the good thing about Fabriik is we're launching as an ecosystem, and For the exchange specifically, what's great about it is because of the regulation, it gives us access to the institutional side of the business where they may not have been able to transact before. And what I mean by that is there's certain asset managers or funds or banks or other types of institutions that are required by law or by regulation to be able to transact in a certain marketplace. And we at Fabriik, we're going to be obtaining or have already obtained some of those licenses. So not only will they be able to trade on the exchange, but those institutions will, depending on the size of their trade, will be able to also access our markets division, which is an OTC desk, and they'd be able to trade on that. Another benefit for the institutional market is our Fabriik qualified custody. As you probably know or would understand, that in blockchain or holding cryptocurrencies can be quite daunting. I know even myself, as my own digital assets continue to grow, it gets a bit scary if you're holding your own keys, right? And certainly institutions who are playing in literally hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, they wouldn't want that kind of risk or that responsibility. So a custodial service is extremely important or critical to that piece. And I think that's also something that was missing a few years ago for the institutional players to come in. So our Fabriik qualified custody division will be able to solve this problem for them, where they'll be able to come and purchase on the exchange, purchase through our Fabriik markets on OTC, and then have them straight go to our custody division in Fabriik qualified markets. So I think you were asking the types of clients. So obviously the second type of client base that we're targeting is the retail customer. And this could be the trader who's already has assets and wants to come and wants to be able to exchange it for, they've got some BSV and they want to buy Polkadot, for example. Traditionally right now, if you wanted to do that, you would have to transfer it to USD or Bitcoin or Ethereum, and then you would be able to buy your Polkadot that way. But on our exchange, you'll be able to go straight from BSV to Polkadot, as an example. So saving some transaction costs, saving some fees. And then if they want, they would actually even be able to store that in their Fabriik qualified custody division as well. Or they can take it off to their own wallet if they'd like. And then the other type of retail customer that we're looking at is there's a lot of newbies in the market, right? And as the market continues to expand, and we're trying to make it much easier for them to participate in this space, to get to understand it through education. And what we've kind of done is we're creating this very simple portfolio. Portfolio manager, if you want to call it that, is where if somebody comes in and they're like, look, I know about Bitcoin, I've heard about Ethereum, but what else do I buy, right? What else am I interested in? And what we're creating in that is a very simple user interface where clients can basically just pick and choose which assets they want to have through some suggestions that we might say, here's the top 10, here's the top 5 in DeFi, here's something that's happening over in AI, and you can just kind of drag and drop those tokens into this portfolio and then allocate a percentage to them and then click buy, and then instantly they would be purchased in one shot through our exchange. So this is something that I think, Fabriik as a group, what we're trying to do is, bridge that gap between the old world and the new world, but more importantly, create wider access to everybody, right? Giving that access to across a number of different categories, whether it's the rich, it's the poor, it's the bottom billion, it's the top billion. It's about really giving access to everyone. And we really believe in that term of digital, everything digital.
I mean, it's interesting in terms of Fabriik's connection with Bitcoin SV, which, although, as you say, on the exchange, it's going to be agnostic as to different currencies that you might want to trade. There is a special relationship with Bitcoin SV in Fabriik as a larger group. And Bitcoin SV is very much against the idea of cryptocurrencies for speculation, purely for speculation. And I'm wondering how, in that respect, the exchange fits into the bigger philosophy, because isn't Bitcoin SV all about utility and not simply inviting people to kind of place bets on changing, very volatile cryptocurrencies?
It's a good question, and I guess I'm going to answer it this way: is at the end of the day, we're an exchange, we're a marketplace. Okay, we do not take opinions on policy or philosophy or, this should be this way or that way, right? What we're interested in is providing a very, I don't think democratic is right. I guess I'll stick with your word as agnostic view of the marketplace and say, whether it's BSV, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's Ethereum, whether it's Polkadot, whether it's Chili's, we want to be able to provide our customers access to these marketplaces. At the end of the day, the customers are going to choose which products they want to trade, which ones they want to invest in. And you know what? That's the best thing about, a free world, right? Is the ability to have that choice. So we don't want to box anyone into anything. Yes, we will support BSV as far as the different pairs, but we're not going to bite into that, hey, it's only all about BSV, because it's not. There's some great things that are being done on other products or other services or other chains that are happening out there that should be looked at, should be supported, and that's where the exchange comes in. So speaking specifically for the exchange, it's very, very important for us to remain very neutral. I guess that was the word I was looking for, neutral. And I think also from a regulatory standpoint, that's also a requirement from an exchange, is to not be a participant in the market. We don't make markets. We don't have, there's no exchange market making from the exchange side. Wash trading is a really, really big issue for us in terms of making sure that there's fair pricing and the volumes are real, because we have to report all of that to the regulatory bodies.
Just going back to the institutional side, your own background that I mentioned at the beginning is in some of the very big banks. And the way that you described setting up Fabriik Exchange is obviously designed to make it something that big institutions will be comfortable with in terms of regulation and security and so on. I'm wondering, if you set up an exchange now in cryptocurrencies or digital assets, whatever you want to call them, is there really any difference anymore between that and an exchange that deals in Apple shares or any other stocks and shares?
Today I would say it's much closer than it was a few years ago. I almost want to tell you a little bit a story. I think to answer this. So I know this gentleman. He's 25 years old. I'm obviously more than double his age. And he was asking me. He said he had, he heard that I was, quite big in investing. He didn't say crypto. He didn't say stocks. He just said investing. And he said to me, listen, I really like some advice on what to invest. And so I told him, I said, look, go open an account on X, Y, and Z. And I said, then once you've opened the account, take a look and see what you think you like. Do a little bit of research on your own. Tell me what portfolio you want to build, and then I'll give you, I'll take a look at it. And what he came back with me? It was quite interesting. First thing he did is he basically bought five cryptocurrencies. So not stocks, not bonds, none of the traditional old stuff. He actually bought crypto. I didn't even push him into that, right? And the ones that he bought, I won't say which ones he bought, but they were basically, within the top 50 cryptos, okay? And it was actually a quite nice little portfolio to put together. And I asked him, I said, why did you do this? And he said, well, this is, what I'm reading about. This is what, I'm interested in. This is what my friends are talking about. And, it really spoke volumes to me, because it kind of showed me that this is a new mindset. This is a new way of thinking, a new way of investing, right? The whole millennial generation or pre-millennial, it's a different way of how they want to invest. He didn't talk about Amazon or Apple or any of these, right? And so I found that quite interesting from the standpoint that we are seeing this fundamental shift, that there's this new direction in investing. Now, to your question, how is that relating to the traditional world as it is today? And what we're seeing is, look, digital assets are in a whole new marketplace, right? They're not on any other real stock exchange out there today. They've created these new marketplaces. And those are the future. I believe now, especially when I saw this gentleman, and I'm seeing other similar stories, those are going to be the new marketplaces. What's going to be interesting to see, I think, is how does somebody like an Amazon or an Apple, that's trading on NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange, how do they adapt to this new world? Are they going to eventually tokenize, those stocks to kind of catch up to where the new shift or this new momentum is going? Will it be the same regulation? I actually think it'll be most likely the same regulation. And today with securities, when you're listing security tokens, or I look at some of the security token marketplaces, they're following exactly the rules of issuing of securities, the listing of securities. All those rules are still. So I guess one of the nice things is that the regulation still holds for the new digital assets. It's just a different style product and different. And I think where the real advantage comes in is the transaction costs, the way you transact with it, the way you can actually hold it right into your own wallet. I can transact it with you directly. And because it's on blockchain, all of that can be tracked.
If you were still working at Bank of America, would you be looking out on all these developments and thinking maybe traditional banking is going to be the victim of a real big technological change? I was reading a piece in The Economist last week that suggested that all this adds up to really a sort of seismic shift in the world of finance, and that banking hasn't quite caught up with that. What's, with your experience of kind of both sides of it, what's your view on that?
It was one of the things that was really hard for me in banking when I was there, was how slow everything moves, and so much bureaucracy and so many levels to get something approved. And if it didn't make, like, this is maybe 15 years ago, but if it didn't make $500 million in the first year, they weren't interested, right? Because they had such huge balance sheets to start something new or fresh, that would grow from 10 million to 20 million to 100 million to $1 billion, and it took 2 or 3 years. They weren't interested. So, I think they're sort of a victim of their own self, right? Is they sort of became cocky. They sort of became arrogant, I guess you could say. And, we're already seeing that today with the challenger banks coming out there and sort of, passing them or taking market share from them. You're going to start seeing, I think, other kinds of neo brokers. If I was still at Bank of America, I think the one area that they should definitely be investing in, because this is something that they do have, is they've got the client base, right? They have from the top of the wealthiest individuals and corporations in the world to a plethora of, hundreds of millions of retail clients, right? And they should be offering some type of cryptocurrency, whether it's OTC, part of their portfolio. And, look, we're slowly seeing that today, but I would be much, much more aggressive on that. And they're sort of, I think, holding back the market. For what reason? Because they're afraid that their customers might, invest 1% or 3% of their portfolio and then lose that. And then that doesn't sit on their balance sheet. Probably. They want that balance sheet to keep growing, right? That's how they continue to evolve and make money, right? They don't want that potential, but I think it's getting to a point where they can't ignore it. So if I was at Bank of America or any of the big banks today, I would be really pushing first with the high net worth individuals and showing them how cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology should be part of their portfolio going forward. Much the same way that I believe Fabriik Exchange is going to be showing how the retail customers can build their own small portfolio, even with $500 or $100 or $50. They could actually be part of this new marketplace and this new movement.
But if that person at Bank of America goes to a very rich billionaire and says you should be putting money into Bitcoin or whatever, would Bank of America just organize that itself, or would Fabriik Exchange potentially be a customer of Bank of America for that?
I think obviously Bank of America would need liquidity sourcing, right, to be able to purchase those assets somewhere. And yes, Fabriik Exchange or our markets division on the Fabriik OTC side will be able to provide those services to Bank of America. So if that one billionaire wanted to buy, for example, let's say $1 million worth of BSV, then Bank of America would be able to provide the pricing based whether it's on our marketplace or an aggregate of other exchanges, including ours. Then they would be able to offer that pricing. He would say yes. Then they would be able to do the transaction. They would be able to purchase those direct BSV from our exchange. We could handle that all in the back end on our Fabriik qualified custody account, which I'm sure that they would have. And then we would be able to transfer those assets to the customer almost immediately. So yes, we would be able to be that back office facilitation for any institution or bank that would want to provide those types of services to their, whether it's their wealthy clients or even their portfolio managers.
Great. So I believe the exchange is going to open, we hope, sometime around June. Is that right?
That's correct. If we can open earlier, we will for sure, but we're looking at a June launch date, yes.
And where is it going to be based and where is it going to launch first?
So the first regulation is out of the United States. So we're launching from the US. But the good thing about that is it allows us to onboard US customers in a certain number of states that we currently are registered in, as well as be able to accept customers from pretty much all over the world, with the exception of the obvious FACTA or the no-fly zone country list, right? And I'm not talking Corona. So so we're going to be launching in the US first, and then we're going to be rolling out to the European Union with some really nice licensing out of there, where we've applied and are expecting to hopefully receive our MTF license, which is an exchange license for the European Union, towards the end of the summer or early fall.
What about poor old UK, which is no longer in the European Union?
So there's it's interesting what's been happening with Brexit. Obviously, it's been a bit difficult from a regulatory standpoint of, how do you market there? How do you trade there? How do you transact there? What can you do? What can you do? I've been on so many calls or watched our marketing team just kind of go a little nuts because it just seems like everything changes or no one would commit to an answer because, they just don't know, right? But now that Brexit has actually happened, the good thing is some things have actually come a little bit more clear. There's ways to be able to passport over into the UK to be able to do marketing. We're not currently looking at a direct license at the moment, but because of some of our other licensing, it does allow us to do marketing or passport over in there as long as we're registering. So we will be following those things. So yes, we will be offering the services to UK clients.
And what about the other side of the world, China and Asia and so on?
Look, make no mistake, Asia is a huge market. It's one of the markets that's probably, I would say, close to being the largest adopted in terms of crypto pairs and cryptocurrencies. It's a very important market for us, but I think the way we are looking at it right now is we want to get live. We want to get live with our ecosystem. We've got some really good licensing that we wanted to get on board first over in Europe with our MTF license and our US licenses. And then we're going to slowly roll out and move out into Asia. So we want to establish more of a Western, establishment first before we go over into the Asian market. But we will be there. And of course, we can accept Asian customers as well. We don't have to actually be there to be able to accept them.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I don't quite understand. If you're saying, you open in the US and anyone from the rest of the world can use that, what's the difference? Why do you need all these other places as well then?
Look, I think from my experience in being in the online trading space for better part of a decade or so, customers like to feel local. Right? They want to be in their local jurisdiction. They want to also be able to pick and choose where it's applicable, pick and choose which jurisdiction, right? Some jurisdictions offer better terms and conditions. Some jurisdictions are more stringent. Some jurisdictions require more information, right? So at the end of the day, it's really about servicing our customers locally first, and then if there's no local presence, for them to choose the next place that they would like to go that's easiest or best for them.
Great. Well, just turning back to your own history and interests, as I mentioned, you've got a very wide sort of experience of being an entrepreneur, banking, and so on. How does this particular project fit into your own idea of what you want to do and what you want to do next? Because your AI business is still running successfully, I think. Where are you going to go with this in a few years' time, do you think?
The AI company I started, it's called Yippo Technologies, was more of a hobby at first, but it's been able to create, we started so early and we were able to create some really cool technology, and it's sort of kind of taken on a life of its own, especially during Corona. The team there has been able to develop quite an amazing number of products.
That's in London, right?
It is. It's based in the UK. It's based, in London, with some developers in some other Eastern European countries. And look, I'm not really involved in any of the day-to-day operations there at all. In fact, I'm more of a more visionary type person. I come in, pop my head in, and once a month or something. But for me, it's about doing things that change the world. I think I'm at a point in my career where, I've been pretty successful. I've been very lucky with that. I've got a very good family, and now I'm trying to see, well, what can I do with my skill set, my knowledge base, to, as corny as it sounds, to try to change the way the status quo, to change the world for something better. And what I really love about, crypto or blockchain technology is this idea of this open access to, billions of people around the planet that was unavailable before. You've always heard the term bank the unbankable, and I kind of coined the phrase trade the untradeable, right? And, I really believe that somebody from Indonesia should be able to trade, Facebook's, stock, which they had no access to before, nor could they afford a price because there wasn't fractional ownership available prior. And now they can, because they can buy, $10 or $20 worth of Facebook stock, and the reason why I say Facebook in Indonesia is I think Indonesia is like third or fourth largest user of Facebook. So that's this kind of things that interest me, and using technology, whether it's something through AI or something through blockchain or just something that's really innovative. And that's what keeps me interested. And I think that's for me with the exchange and Fabriik Exchange, that fits me perfectly, because going back to what I said about being agnostic to products, right? I get to look at and see now all the cool things that are being developed. And a way for me personally, as well as the company, is we can support those products by listing them on the exchange, opening them up to, millions of investors all around the world that would not have had access to that technology before.
Yeah, one sort of detail about that we haven't actually mentioned. Is it going to be part of Fabriik that you will be able to buy fractions of shares like Facebook's? Is that part of what the Fabriik Exchange is going to be doing?
So from a product standpoint, we as I mentioned earlier, right, everything digital. Okay, so our intention is to use good regulation, use the technology. Probably a lot of it will be built on the BSV, back end, but to fractionalize or tokenize shares, real world shares. But we're going to be tokenizing everything, whether it's shares, commodities, indices, CFDs, futures, new projects, and then you can got the whole other side of the world from security tokens, whether it's listing of real estate, artwork, you name it, right? Sports teams. The whole NFT space is really, really cool, really, really interesting.
Are these other sort of more interesting things that you'll be able to trade on the exchange? Is that sort of for future development? Will you open with the more straightforward currency pairs?
Yes. So look, we're not opening with this massive marketplace that's happening. I would love to, but that's just not realistic, right? So we are launching, with just the first step is just traditional spot, being able to buy and sell whole, units, or I'm sorry, not whole, but the actual spot value of the cryptocurrency. So if you have 55,000 and you want to buy one Bitcoin, or 10,000 and want to buy one Bitcoin, you get it. The next step will be to add a fiat component to that. And then we're going to be adding derivatives. So you'll be able to trade leverage and margin trading on that. And then we'll be able to be connecting things like, we have this really cool, what's called the Fabriik Smart Wallet. and we'll be able to connect that to the exchange, and you'll be able to build your portfolio and be able to move your assets around. And this is where more of these types of assets are going to come into play, like the digital stocks or the digital commodities, other types of different products like options, maybe knockouts, things like this. And then we're also going to be building out that whole security token side of the piece that will play really, again, nicely, whether it's you're raising money, whether you're taking an existing company and you're going to go ahead and tokenize it so that you can have some exit for some of your investors. The challenge to all of this is, how does regulation fit in? Because there's very many different products there that in the real world cross different types of regulation, right? One's under, like in the US, one's under the CFTC, another one is under the SEC, another one is under FinCEN. How do you make that marketplace really smooth for the customer, where they don't feel like they're jumping around from place to place or have to constantly be reevaluating KYC or AML or accredited investor or not accredited investor? And that's something I think that Fabriik is really focusing on, and what will set us apart from the current marketplaces that are out there. When you check in with us in a year from now, I think, from a technology and a customer experience, I believe hands down will be one of the best in the industry, and one of the most widely products as well offering.
Well, we'll be watching with great interest, starting in June, if not sooner. And it sounds like an amazing project, and very glad to have been able to discuss it at this early stage. And then I'm sure it'll be interesting to look back on this conversation. So thank you so much for talking to me today, Daniel.
No, I appreciate it too. And I really enjoy these things because it sort of reminds me of why I am in the space, to take a breath and kind of stop. And it's not about just building, it's about taking a breath and saying what you've already created and where you want to go, right? So, super excited. Fabriik Exchange coming very soon. The whole Fabriik ecosystem can really help everybody. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, I hope you'll come back and tell us more, maybe when you've got your first NFTs on offer on the exchange or something like that. But thank you
Sounds
so much,
good.
Daniel.
No problem. Thank you, mate. Cheers.
Thanks very much to Daniel Skowronski, and keep an eye open for the Fabriik Exchange, which will be opening for business in the coming weeks. Next week, I'm talking to Patrick Prince of the Bitcoin Association, who's based in Zurich, so we'll be talking a little bit about the CoinGeek Conference, which will be happening in Zurich at the beginning of June, but much else besides. So please join me and Patrick next week. Thanks very much for listening to CoinGeek Conversations, and until next week, from me, Charles Miller, goodbye.
Data is one of the world's most valuable commodities. Tech giants and institutions have become richer by collecting and selling data. Data has the power to liberate, but has been used to manipulate. Data should be used to improve interoperability while securing privacy. Data sovereignty is most powerful when ownership is restored to individuals. But how can we speed up the flow of information while also empowering everyone to be more private, secure, and free? Join us at CoinGeek Zurich and learn how the Bitcoin SV blockchain ignites the power of data.